For more than 50 years, AAMCO has provided auto repair across the country. The company says thousands of consumers have taken advantage of its free check engine light inspection with great customer feedback. But even before our report aired, AAMCO decided to pull the promotion and provide refresher training for all franchisees on how to properly perform this service after what we found in this News 4 I-Team investigation.
I have a check engine light. I wanted to get checked.
The News 4 I-Team is undercover at area AAMCO stations from Virginia to Maryland, D.C. to Delaware.
It's a free inspection with a check engine light.
We're going to show you what that free offer really means.
Did you look? I didn't take a look. You didn't take a look?
What happens when you leave your car behind.
He's not going around the block.
And why some customers say they feel duped.
I took them at that commercial at their word.
When the light came on in Vince Pile's 97 BMW, he thought of that AAMCO commercial. Check engine light on, we'll check it for free.
Old definition, it will not cost you a cent, a penny, a quarter.
But Pile says the shop charged $50.
If you let us fix the car, then we'll wrap that fee into the price of the car repair.
Pile had to pay up for this printout showing what that free check found.
There's no free information, and it wasn't free.
That check engine light is on in our News 4 I-Team vehicle too, but we already know what the problem is.
Cosmetically, it's not the most attractive, but mechanically, it's in very good shape.
We had certified master technician Jim Parks inspect it from top to bottom. He's worked as a technician for 35 years and now investigates auto complaints in Montgomery County, Maryland. He made our check engine light come on by cutting a wire near what's called the intake air temperature sensor, or IAT. It won't hurt the car, but Parks says a quick check with a handheld scanner hooked up to the car under the steering wheel should give a code pointing to the problem area.
If he follows the diagnostic procedure, there are only 2 wires to check.
To see what really happens when we take the car into a shop, we've put hidden cameras inside, outside, and throughout the rest of the car.
You guys still do the free check engine inspection?
Yeah, I'll do it for you.
We visit 7 different AAMCOs. Each time our cameras show them hooking up the scanner to get that IAT code. But then the pitch starts to change.
It's just essential.
2 locations say the sensor needs to be replaced, something they suggest we can do ourselves. But when we push for more help, one points us to the wrong location under the hood.
Check if it's disconnected. It's right by the air cleaner, where we put the air filter in.
It's near the air filter?
Yeah, air filter.
At a Delaware shop, we're told the specific problem could be hard to pinpoint.
When people ask me, well, I got this code, what's wrong with it? I usually have no idea.
That doesn't keep him from offering a wrong solution.
It's probably just a matter of cleaning the upper intake manifold.
At a charge of $200.
The intake air temperature sensor is bad.
The estimate is even higher at a Virginia AAMCO.
What are we looking at on that?
It's 225.
225.
To immediately condemn the sensor is just jumping the gun.
Our expert Jim Parks rechecks the car after each visit and confirms there's nothing wrong with the IAT sensor. He says had any of the shops lifted the hood, they would have likely found the cut wire. And even if we did have to replace that sensor, it generally should cost less than $140, including parts and labor.
I guess if it were me and I did that free scan, I would at least open the hood, because if the sensor had just come unplugged and you plugged it back in, you're a hero. It hasn't cost you anything, hasn't cost the consumer anything, and the next time they do need some more significant work, they'll keep you in mind and come back.
Here he comes. We move on to the AAMCO in Randallstown, Maryland, where they do look under the hood, but only after we agree to pay $45. They spot the wire and tell us they can fix it, and the sensor for $300, more than double what our expert estimates it should cost. The guy also warns us the car could shut down if we don't do something. The owner of that shop wrote the News 4 I-Team saying he believes all of our interactions with your shopper were proper and in accordance with the check engine light for free offer, and that we also recommended replacing the sensor because, in our opinion, there was reason to believe that the sensor might have been affected by the damage we found. Our last stop is the AAMCO on Howard Street in Baltimore. The sign out front advertises that free check, but it's a different story inside, where we're told we'll have to pay $49.99, which would go towards any future repairs. Curious to see what would happen? We agree. Our camera catches an employee rifling through our middle console, unlocking our glove compartment, and even using our car to pick up a part for another vehicle. Once inside the garage, the worker spends less than 3 minutes under the hood, never in the location of the IAT sensor. Still, the shop says it needs to be replaced for $200. The owner of that AAMCO tells corporate, despite the sign outside, he does not participate in the promotional free check because of the high incidence of such requests. He says the individual who recommended the sensor replacement is no longer employed there, so he's been unable to confirm his reasoning behind that recommendation. The owner says he is confident, however, that the problem would have been corrected if your shopper had authorized the repair, but he did offer to give us a refund. Tearing out and rebuilding a transmission. It's complicated and it's never going to be cheap. But the News 4i team is going to show you why so many customers in our area are unhappy with
AAMCO. For over 50 years, AAMCO's been known as the transmission expert.
I was like, AAMCO, the professionals in transmission.
Mike Mills said he paid a Virginia AAMCO almost $4,000 to rebuild his transmission. But as soon as he drove away,
when the truck shifts from second to third, it like decelerated and then jumped right in the third gear, enough to make me turn around and go back.
He says AAMCO's corporate office told him to take his car to a different AAMCO location, where he heard a familiar tale.
He said, I need to rebuild your transmission. I said, well, how much is that gonna cost? He said, I can probably get it all done for maybe like $4,000. I said, hold on a second. I go out to the truck, I bring back the paperwork from the other AAMCO. He laughed, said,
Mills says AAMCO agreed to rebuild the second transmission at no cost, but he says his SUV still isn't fixed.
I just think they got me for $4,000.
The News 4i team discovered there are more complaints filed against AAMCO in Maryland, D.C., and Virginia than any other auto repair company in our region. Dozens of complaints about transmissions never getting fixed, even though customers spent $3,000, $4,000, $5,000. My car has been to this AAMCO 12 times for the same issue, and now my transmission is completely gone. On the way home, the car sounded like a 747, and the whole car started shaking.
They sell hope where a lot of times there is none.
Mike Johnson worked for AAMCO headquarters from 2010 until last year. A master technician with 35 years experience, he's talking to us because he says AAMCO takes advantage of its customers.
Unfortunately, to be profitable, I think a lot of them cut corners to save money, and the end result is the complaints. Sometimes there's probably a little haste to condemn the transmission.
Johnson and other AAMCO franchise owners say the main goal is to get that transmission out.
The big thing that makes me uncomfortable is the removal, disassembly, and inspection. You know, I think that is unethical.
Johnson's talking about how AAMCO charges between $450 to $700 to pull your transmission out, knowing they can't fix it for that price.
I didn't feel that was right. We know what it's going to cost.
Johnson and other franchise owners tell the I-Team AAMCO knows you're more likely to agree to spend thousands of dollars once the transmission's been taken apart. And if you decide the money's not worth it, some shops will charge you hundreds of dollars to put it back together.
They told me that I had to pay them $795 to put the transmission back in the vehicle.
Sheila Wilson says a Maryland AAMCO wanted more than $6,000 to repair her transmission after it had been pulled out of her Mitsubishi. AAMCO says Wilson authorized them to pull the transmission out for the $795, something she denies.
I said, well, you know what? Just give me the vehicle. You don't need to put the transmission back in. Well, they wouldn't do that.
Instead, she says AAMCO started charging her storage fees until Wilson served the shop's owner with court papers. Suddenly, she got her car back at no charge. In a statement, AAMCO says transmission problems are the most complicated and costly to repair. It is often impossible to diagnose the extent of a transmission problem until the transmission is removed from the vehicle and inspected. Our operational procedure is for the center to tell the customer up front what their cost will be to diagnose the transmission. After diagnosis, the customer is given an estimate of the necessary repair. If the customer does not authorize the repair, the faulty transmission must must be reassembled and reinstalled at the quoted inspection price, which is not the repair price. But Veronica Anglade says that's not what happened to her.
The car was hijacked.
Nearly 2 years after she dropped off her black Mazda minivan at this AAMCO in Randallstown, Maryland, it's still sitting there.
I was so mad. I said, no, it doesn't work like that.
Anglade says she initially agreed to pay $800 to pull the transmission out, but says the price to fix the transmission jumped to $1,600 and then $3,400 after the transmission was in pieces.
You can't do nothing with the car in parts.
Anglade says the shop wanted $1,000 to put the transmission back in. She refused. In a statement, the owner of the shop told us a different story. The labor charge to remove and evaluate her transmission was $1,250. We have no use for her vehicle, but since we have not heard from Miss Anglade, we find ourselves with a broken vehicle sitting in our parking lot.
I want my car back fixed.
When we told AAMCO's corporate headquarters about Anglade's minivan, the company decided to give it back. Our cameras were rolling when they hooked up the van and towed it back to her house at no charge.
I'm happy to have it back.
There are more than 700 AAMCO stations across the country. Nearly all are owned by independent franchisees, people who spend tens of thousands of dollars for the right to put an AAMCO sign on their storefront.
I'm talking to you because I'm desperate.
But some owners tell the News 4i team they're unhappy. This owner is so afraid of retaliation from the company, we agreed to hide his identity.
I'm scared because of the threats I get. I was told if we break contract, they'll sue everything we have.
He says to start the business, he paid about $40,000 down and another $20,000 for AAMCO's required training program.
Everything was positive about AAMCO. What they do for you. Their business model has been proven, and you don't need to know anything about transmissions to be in transmission business because their model eliminates that. All you have to do is follow the model.
He says he spent most of the month-long training course practicing how to use these telephone scripts, line-by-line dialogue to read to hesitant customers, telling them your transmission has an internal problem and it needs to be rebuilt. He says AAMCO insisted every store use these scripts to convince customers to pull the transmissions out of their cars.
The training is nothing about how to market your business, really. It's all focused on the sales, the telephone sales, and getting the car.
But he and other owners tell the News 4i team they quickly discovered the scripts didn't work and they started to lose money. They all blame the mandatory fees AAMCO charges for things like advertising as well as a percentage of every sale.
I don't think we were given all the information that we should have been given. I think we got duped.
Where I have a problem is so many of these new franchisees have no automotive background.
Mike Johnson worked for AAMCO corporate headquarters from 2010 until last year.
I think they're selling, the hope and the American dream, and they're setting these people up. A lot of people just don't have the knowledge and the experience. And I think a lot of them fail.
Why does he believe it? Because he was one of the guys AAMCO hired to take over failing franchises while the company tried to find a new owner. According to a popular franchise watchdog site, AAMCO ranked as one of the worst 25 franchises in the nation last year because almost 40% of its franchises fail based on a failure to repay government small business loans. Johnson says he personally flipped about 18 of these failing stores in 2 years.
Well, they pretty much want to get your deposit, get you through class, and sell you the store, and then collect the 7.5%. I've been in the automotive industry for many, many years. You can't run a business like that and be successful.
Would you own a franchise?
Nope.
Why not?
The percentage you're paid to corporate, the ad pull, the advertising, the control, they have ultimate control over the entire business. I would not. And I was really interested in doing it. I'm 56 years old. I would love to retire with a couple good, stores, but not AAMCO's.
13 states, including Maryland and Virginia, require companies selling franchises like AAMCO to give potential buyers what's called a franchise disclosure agreement, a written document outlining all of the possible fees and problems a future franchisee could face. The News 4i team has uncovered AAMCO recently got in trouble for not disclosing an important detail. Authorities in Washington State and Virginia say AAMCO never told franchisees its CEO put another auto repair chain into bankruptcy.